Hi everyone, this is the second video in our small series about character design. In the first one we created a diverse thumbnail sheet for the task. Now, having chosen the thumbnail we like the most, and after fleshing out the character's backstory, we can move on to the next stage. The obvious thought might be, we have a thumbnail, let's just jump straight to clean, presentable final sketch, add a back view and call it a day. And in some cases, especially if you have extra time or a workflow that allows for fast iteration, this actually might work. But if the character hasn't been broken down into smaller design tasks, and we're dealing with them as a complex whole entity, I wouldn't rush. We're not just making a skin for an existing archetype with a flashy look. We're building the character from scratch, with a unique story, gear, and personality. The equipment should fit naturally, emphasize the character's traits, and make them stand out from the rest of the lineup. One good approach here is to give yourself a bit of time for additional support sketches. This safe space lets you explore various design elements, both as a whole and individually, and find yourself anchors and milestones. These sketches can be portraits to nail proportions, expressions, and personality, or quick scenarios that highlight the character's quirks, for example. With this character, from the first thumbnail, I already imagined situations that showcased him as a big, armed guy, yet oddly modest, introverted, and comfort-oriented. His gear has everyday elements, comfy shorts, tourist-like accessories, airport terminal vibes in general. This contrast, an imposing man with guns but wrapped in warmth and relatability, is what I decided to emphasize, and what I actually found interesting about this character in general. Support sketches also speed up the final concept stage by reducing guesswork and exposing design problems early. For instance, you might discover that elements drawn from one angle don't work from another, or that certain props haven't been thought through in detail. Fixing these issues now is far cheaper than reworking a polished final later. For this project I had the requirement to design an optional gear, a backpack or add-on equipment that looked designed with the character in mind. Initially I even explored combining his two guns with a coffee dispenser, using a silencer as a machine's handle. Fun idea, but without animation it was too hard to visually sell it. So I set it aside. I also entertained an idea of giving him a sniper rifle at first that would fit into the backpack, or would fold to form a bag. But that made this backpack or whatever a permanent necessity, contradicting the optional requirement. So I reworked it. Once these exploratory sketches are done, I move to the final presentation pose. This pose should highlight the character's mass, shape language, and design language, but also keep the design readable for production. Sometimes a pose that's perfect for mood hides important details. In those cases, clarity wins. You want 3D artists to have all the visual information they need. Here you can see how sketches we did previously start to pay off. At this point you have spent some time with the character, you start to develop a better feel for him, his forms, proportions and design nuances. So you're likely to arrive to a nice, readable and balanced, presentable pose much quicker. And also it's very beneficial to have all your previous sketches lined up as a reference for you on the same sheet. A little time-saving trick I often use. Once I finish the front view line art, I invert it, erase the interior lines to get a clean silhouette, and then adjust it into the back view. Legs and perspective will need redrawing, of course, but it's faster and more accurate than starting from scratch. From here I fill the silhouette, then block in local colors on separate layers grouped by material or base color, so I can quickly tweak them later using hue and saturation adjustment. At this stage I'm not chasing perfect color harmony, just setting up a structure for further experimentation. And I get a lot of questions regarding the thin and neat looking outline of the character. No magic here, just a stroke mode in layer style options that you can open with a double click on the layer. Just remember to use fully opaque brush with defined edge for the layer you apply the stroke option for. Otherwise the result will look very messy. And here you might ask, what the hell, where did all the shadows came from all of a sudden? And yeah, I fucked up here. I forgot to turn on recording on this stage, but hey, I got you. Here's my friend, Officer Random Sketch. He will help me to compensate for my little mistake and demonstrate you the process. So for shadows, I keep it simple to avoid overcomplication. Using a slightly oval pressure sensitive round brush. I also use the same brush as an eraser. I draw shadows at full opacity, thinking about the light source direction. I don't vary the shadow tone while painting. Tonal variation comes from erasing or some slight variation of putting pressure on the stylus to create soft fall-offs or reflected light in shadowed areas. But actually wait for it, and I'll explain everything in more details in a second. Hey, let me quickly hijack you for a moment to explain a few things. First of all, I know that there gonna be a question that is usually asked, like what kind of brush do I use to paint these shadows? And there is no big secret here, it's just a standard round brush with a few settings tweaked. One of the settings is the brush tip. I made it squished. The other thing is I usually, for my brushes, keep one of two settings on. It's either dual brush with some kind of opaque tip in overlay mode, or a texture brush. I will probably demonstrate it on some other brush, like maybe this one. Yeah, texture. It might be in different modes depending on the concrete brush or some particular textures that it's using, but the reason why I use one of those is to make the dynamic of translucent to opaque more harsh. What I mean is that when I make a brush stroke, usually the brush strokes for me goes very rapidly from light to very dark, like almost with no pressure applied. And that comes from two things. One, it provides a greater value control. What I mean is that I have to force myself to be more deliberate with the choice of values working like this. The second reason was I was afraid to develop carpal tunnel syndrome, because in my earlier days I had to work like 8 to 12 hours a day, and applying too much pressure on the stylus has put like significant strain on my wrists, and therefore I started to feel some pain in the wrist area, and I didn't want to develop into CTS, I think it's called like that, and therefore I lowered my settings on the Wacom tablet, so I hide the sensitivity, and also I used these options almost for all of my brushes. But consequently, that was a very beneficial thing to start working with values in a more controlled and deliberate fashion. Oh, and another thing that I actually forgot to mention about this particular brush is this setting here, which is like pan tilt control. I control it with the tilt of the pen, obviously. I think this is a very cool thing to make a more precise brushstrokes, and it makes this painting process a little bit closer to how more traditional, like interaction with more traditional media feels, where you can actually control the direction and position of your brush or something like that, so you make like less moves and you're more precise. Another small thing that I wanted to point out is probably it's easier to demonstrate it. Like imagine there is a sphere and we want to shade it. So like for a sphere like this, like imagine there's some kind of shape like this and I have to shade it using this method. What I would usually do is make some kind of a fully opaque shadow, like maybe with a form like this. Like I won't be like super precise, but I hope I'll just communicate the idea. So for example, I have like this shape here, and another thing that I will do is form this very slight transition area somewhere around here, and then with a bigger brush I will make this few like brush strokes suggesting the reflected light, something like that. And why this thing is kinda important, although it certainly doesn't look like that, is because there is a mistake that is largely overlooked, especially by younger artists. Intuitively, many younger artists, they think that the rate at which the intensity of reflected light drops with the turn of the form, when the surface turns away from the light source, is linear, but it is not. And what they tend to do sometimes is making this transition area actually quite larger, like something like that. If you have some kind of a perfect Lambertian surface, you will have a very concrete and defined ratio at which the intensity of reflected light will fall off. Let me quickly demonstrate. Like, let's imagine we have this light source that emits the light rays. For simplicity, let's make them parallel. And there is a surface that receives this light. If the normal of the surface is parallel to the light rays, the cosine of it will be like 0, and basically this ratio is calculated using cosine of these angles. So for 0 angle between the normal of the surface and the light rays, the intensity of reflected light will be 100%. Like 100% doesn't mean that 100% of the light that came to the surface is reflected, because there's some energy spent in heat dispersion and some other things. It doesn't matter, really. It's just like the amount of light that will be reflected will take this amount for 100%. And when we start to actually change the angle of the surface, I'll change the shade a little bit so that it will look better. When we start to change the angle, let's change the surface somewhere around like here, and draw a normal, and the light that comes here will actually come at this angle, which will make roughly 45 degrees here. And this is somewhere around like halfway to the terminal point where the light gets cancelled out, right? And the intuition might tell us that, well, the amount of reflected light here will be probably around 50%, which it is not. And this is the biggest thing that tricks us into making the shading a little bit like darker and messy usually when we start out. Actually, at this angle, the amount of reflected light will still be somewhere around 71%. And this is a huge difference if you think about it. So like to like simply explain it, like the light dims much slower on its way to terminator when we intuitively think it should. So just to sum up, to make a cleaner shading, I think it's a good idea just to focus first on a more graphic painting, where you just take a look at the form and try to understand where's the area where there is shadow and where are the areas where there is just light. So basically you graphically fill in on all the shaded areas with no transitions, with no extra values applied, just like, you know, very graphically. And after you've done this, you can actually introduce like more variety to the shapes that you have formed. If you see that the form that you're trying to describe has some, like, you know, curvature to it, which asks for a more defined transition, like you basically with an eraser or while forming this shadow, you can just very lightly push on the brush and then just fill in the rest of the shadow, leaving this light transition area. Like just the more you practice with brushes like this and with approach like this, the more intuitive and easy for you that will become. It's almost like a second nature. So yeah, I think it's about it with all the tips, so let's come back to the video. So the shadow layer goes on multiply with a bit of warm tint. Under it I experiment with color palettes following the 80-20 rule. 80% main colors, 20% accent colors. Generally it's easier to manage colors by keeping primaries a bit more desaturated or muted, and accents can be a bit brighter. While adjusting colors, I noticed the back on his side felt like a filler element, taking space but adding no story whatsoever. I decided to swap it for a mag holster, bright semi-transparent orange magazines that show the bullets inside. I think they would add more visual interest, and they are tied directly to the guns, and also that helps, like introducing them helps keeping functionality believable. At this stage, because my layers are somewhat organized and labeled, I can change elements quickly, even at silhouette or shadow level without redoing finished rendering. So here you can see me introducing the same changes now to the silhouette and then to other layers like my shadow layers, and considering the fact that I have all these things on separate layers, it's very easy for me to jump where I need and quickly introduce some adjustments, so not a biggie here. But in general, it's worth mentioning that personally I don't like working with plenty of layers, because at some point it starts basically you just drain your energy. You leak energy just trying to manage all this stuff. It kind of you snap out of your like workflow a lot when you try to manage all these things. So once I feel that I introduced all the necessary changes, usually I just duplicate the whole stack, save it in some of the lower folders as some archive or temp files, and just put all those, merge all those layers in the single one and keep on working on that one, just for simplicity of it. Once local colors and shadows are solid, I move to the slow technical phase, refining material definition. This means deepening shadow ranges, adding highlights, and describing surface qualities. Matte versus glossy, soft versus rigid, fabric weight, fold behavior. These material cues not only make the concept look more premium, they also save 3D artists from guesswork, which is also always a good thing. Now when I have pushed the front view far enough, not finished definitely, but like all the major things are in place, I actually at this point tend to switch to some other part of design, just not to get stuck on one thing for too long. Now I repeat the same process for the back view, sometimes using the lasso tool to isolate faults and erase shadows for clean reflected light accents. While painting the back, I also connect design elements functionally, like for example showing how the thigh-mounted magazines feed into the SMGs, and finish patterns like tattoos on the legs to balance visual weight. To help the 3D team, I add small callouts, different weapon views flipped for site-specific parts, so they don't have to invent missing details. Somewhere around this point, I also worked on 3 head sketches. The goal here was a colored but more graphic, stylized presentation. Flat colors, clean shapes, not over-rendered, so they read quickly and stylishly. Actually it wasn't a very easy thing to do. Too much contrast between shadow and light made the read very heavy. Like, it distracted from the graphic read of these like heads, and these heads were supposed to kind of give a glimpse of the character more in his facial expressions and traits. And you don't really want to emphasize like light dynamic here too much. You really want to emphasize the facial features, and for that it's better to go with slightly lighter light scenario, so that the features would look readable. Also, it's important to note that at that point I didn't really have any particular idea of how I would like to present all the other sketches that I already made, and I knew that at some point I will need to present them in color, but I definitely don't want to put too much effort and time into making them full rendered pieces. I needed to develop some kind of like project specific visual style that would first of all communicate some kind of design which is stylish and cool looking, and is fit nicely for the project, but at the same time doesn't take me too much time to execute. That's why I actually spent a number of times working or reworking, repainting over and over this head until I managed to find this nice balance of very high key lighting where the darkest accents are actually just the local colors of objects themselves. And you can notice that the shadows are actually quite light. Like in shadows there might be some object with darker local color that will stand out, and that allows you to quickly read all the necessary design details and not getting distracted by shadows too much. And once I nailed this thing for me, it became like very easy to just basically repeat this stuff with all the other designs. So every other head, every other sketch that I executed in this manner came out like very, very quickly. With enough elements ready for the main character sheet, I start arranging presentation, adding some subtle graphic flourishes, decorative lines, and layout touches. This might seem cosmetic, but in test assignments it communicates professionalism and makes a stronger portfolio piece, even if you don't get the job. Finally, I bring the main front view as close as possible to an in-engine look, refining skin rendering, clarifying overlapping forms, and making sure all the materials read unambiguously. At this point, I decided to drop the backpack entirely from this sheet and move all gear work to a separate equipment sheet. So that wraps up this video. In the next one I'll focus on the equipment design, finish the second character sheet, and as a bonus, color the early research sketches in the style we developed earlier here. If you find this helpful, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!